So, welcome to Thriving in Graduate School. My name is Christine Kelly. I'm the Director of Career Development, and I'm with,
Michael Sokoto, the Assistant Director of the Career Development Office.
and he has an interesting distinction of being a full time employee plus a student here.
Woohoo!
so, he'll be able to share some of his insights as we go along and talk about the topics we think you need to understand today. So, you're about to embark on a very important journey, and we want to do what we can to help make sure that this is the best possible experience for you. So, this webinar is the first in a series that's designed to help prepare you for your graduate journey. And this series is a collaborative effort by the Career Development Office, the Center for Writing and Rhetoric, Preparing Future Faculty Program, and Transdisciplinary Studies. And we're doing this because we all believe that engaging with our offices is essential to your academic professional development. And the series is designed to cover a set of essential topics in a purposeful order, but they can also be viewed individually. All of them will be recorded and posted at a later date also if you miss them or if you want to watch any again. So again, we're going to guide you through this journey today. And I know some of you might wonder why the Career Development Office is hosting the webinar and what's up with the purple squirrel. So I just wanted to explain that so you know. So we want you to know upfront that your success in graduate school really requires you to concentrate on more than just your coursework. And the purple squirrel is what we use to represent that. So there's been a lot of studies in people who study work and how people work. And conventional wisdom used to hold that people who were specialists, meaning people who know a lot of stuff about one thing, were going to do better in their careers, and they were often represented by hedgehogs, which are blue. If you've all seen Sonic the Hedgehog, he's blue. But they would rise faster and higher than people who are generalists, which are people who know a lot about or a little bit about a lot of different things. Those were represented by red foxes. But given the nature of work today and how things have changed, researchers are actually finding that the people who rise higher and faster and have the ability to pivot when needed are those who have both specialist and generalist knowledge. And when you mix blue hedgehogs and red foxes, you get purple squirrels.
Yep.
So you'll hear a lot about purple squirrels while you're here. And if you want to learn more, you can come talk to us at the CDO. Also, the Preparing Future Faculty Office, the Center for Writing and Rhetoric, and Transdisciplinary Studies offices. We all subscribe to the purple squirrel philosophy. So come and talk to any of us about it anytime you want to. But the point of what we want to talk about today is that I've been through graduate school myself, have a PhD. Michael's in process. Some of you are in different stages. Some of you might have done a master's before coming to your PhD. Some of you might be just starting out in a master's program and don't have graduate school experience. But it's important to know that graduate school is weird. And some of the things that you are going to experience are things that you were not expecting, but that are a typical part of the graduate student experience. And what we're trying to do during this webinar is share with you what some of the regular, typical weirdness of graduate school is, so that when you're in process, you can determine what's regular weird and what might be out of the ordinary weird. I think that helps you to process and to mentally figure out what's going on. If you know, okay, this is something someone told me I'd experience, so I'm ready for it, as opposed to, and then they can distinguish between those two. And then we're also going to give you some tips for successfully navigating your graduate school experience. And we also in our office operate under the philosophy that since your goal here, ideally, I'm guessing, is to develop your career and get a better job, that you need to start thinking about your career development early during your time here rather than at the end. So that's kind of what we're going to talk about. So let's talk about some of the stuff that's weird and normal in graduate school. All right, so things that are normal in graduate school. Having no idea what you're doing. So this is something I want you to know. Everybody in graduate school is posing. And so as you're sitting in your class and it looks like and sounds like everybody else gets what's going on and you're the only one that's lost, that is not true. Everybody else is in that same state. There's a term for it. You've probably heard it before, called the imposter syndrome. And this is something that people who are in knowledge fields experience a lot, but it's not unusual to feel like you're the only one who doesn't know what's going on. And I'm
Absolutely.
sure that you experienced that.
Yes, my first semester was complete imposter syndrome. I used to, after every class, question whether I was worthy of being in those seats with individuals in my cohort who were principals, directors at the K-12 level. Um, I did a lot of me matching up against everyone else, and that's not really the right way to approach the
Mm-hmm.
situation. But what really helped was when I did talk to one of my colleagues, he also mentioned that he too was lost, and he had at that time about 10 years of experience in teaching. Um, so once he said that, I felt a little bit better that someone with the experience and someone who actually knows some of the material is equally as lost as I was. So
Mm-hmm.
just knowing that that's going to happen is important to keeping your motivation.
Yeah. And sometimes it doesn't go away. I mean, I've been out of my PhD program for a little while now. And I still sometimes question myself and think, how in the world did I get a PhD? So everyone's posing. Remember, everyone is posing. And your professors experience this as well. So if
Mhm.
you're feeling like you're the only one and you don't want to say in class, talk to a professor.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, Also, it's important to know that graduate school is purposefully ambiguous. You're being trained to be an independent scholar, so there's a lot less hand holding in graduate school and a lot less direction than you get in your undergrad. So, this means that you actually have to learn to advocate for yourself. You need to ask questions, you need to explore, and you need to get used to the fact that you might ask your professor a question and their response might be, maybe you should go do some research on
Uh,
that.
or another
So,
question.
or another question
Yep.
to
Yep.
get you to think about things. So that's just ambiguity's part of the experience. Also, it can be somewhat isolating, particularly when you're a PhD student. And once you finish coursework, sometimes there's no real drive to come to campus
Mhm.
to, and you're, even if you do, you don't have that regular schedule of meeting with your classmates anymore. So sometimes you lose that connection with people unless you purposefully do things to remain connected to the school. So you, there are opportunities, so you could look for ways to form study groups or writing groups or other things. And even as a master's student, sometimes you could end up in that situation where you're feeling a little bit alone. So avoid isolation by staying connected to the university. And burnout and depression are real
Mm.
things that happen in graduate school. They happen outside of graduate
Yep.
school
Yep.
too, but it happens. There's going to be challenges to your self-esteem. They're going to be, again, in a classroom with a bunch of other really smart people. And it's not unusual. I mean, they've done a lot of studies and found that graduate students suffer from a higher rate of depression than the
Yeah.
general population. And it's hard to know, kind of chicken and egg, where people already maybe a little bit depressed, and then the isolation and some of the experience of
Just
graduate school
increased
makes
it.
them more depressed,
Mhm.
increases it. Or is it like I was fine before I came here and this process has made me depressed? But there are resources around for you. That's something we're very concerned with. And I'll talk a little bit more about this later, but ask for support, take breaks, manage your stress, manage the burnout, and realize that this can happen. And these are things that are, again, normal things to experience in graduate school.
And something to really keep in mind. You create your own norm in graduate school. Unlike an undergraduate where you're basically practicing your study habits, your communication skills with peers or classmates or even professors, at the graduate level, that practice now you're able to really apply it to your strengths and making sure that communication with your colleagues and communication with your professors or advisors are at a very high level where you're building a relationship, and that creates kind of like your norm environment as well, which will definitely help when it comes time to isolation or completing your dissertation, and it can also help definitely with your self-care, with the mental and the physical health as
Mhm,
well.
yeah.
So make sure you build your own norm.
Yeah, and that's actually a great transition into our next slide about understanding the advisor-advisee relationship. So when you're an undergraduate, it really is, there's a differential. You know, the professor's boss and you do whatever he or she says,
Hmm.
and they don't like to be questioned by undergraduates.
Nope.
When you're in a graduate program, the relationship changes. So what your faculty are trying to do is get you on a colleague level with them. And so even when you speak, not that faculty aren't still intimidating in graduate school, but they're looking for you to kind of drive the relationship a little bit more. So again, there are a lot of things that you need to know and understand about how to work with an advisor. And one of the things that a project I worked on over the past year was creating a series of videos
Hmm.
about working with your advisor. So we have the academic professional development page, which is in the CGU portal, which you can access now if you have not already. I'd encourage you to take a look at that. It's got a lot of really great resources on it. But you can see up here advising tips. So, excuse me, there are approximately
12. 12.
there's 20 videos I made. They're short clips. They're about between 5 and I think the longest one is maybe 15 minutes, if
Hmm.
that. I think maybe even 10, but on different topic areas related to understanding the advisor-advisee relationship. The reason I wanted to do this was because there might be some questions that you want to know about, but that maybe you really don't want to ask your advisor about.
Absolutely.
And but these are all faculty voices talking about, so it's interviews with faculty talking about different relationships and different aspects of the advising relationship. So you'll hear faculty talk about how you can best work with them, how you can get the help you need, and even how to change advisors if you think the relationship isn't working for you, which sometimes does happen. And so we ask these questions so that you don't have to. You still might have more after looking at it, but that's the point of them. So um, these are just a few of them. So navigating ambiguity, which for those of you when you finish your, oops, excuse me, Beth, your PhD coursework, um, it becomes even more
Yep.
ambiguous and feelings of isolation. So again, some of them, there are a couple of them that are a little bit more focused on PhD students, but anybody can watch any of them at any time. So I strongly encourage you to take a look at those. And one of the things that's talked about in those videos is how to build a network of advisors. So you want to avoid putting all your eggs in one basket, but we'll talk through these different roles that people can play. So obviously with your advisor, oftentimes there's a lot of competition for the time and attention of your advisor. You can't assume that he or she will always know what you need. So you need to have conversations and share your expectations. And so one of the videos talks about having that first meeting, sharing working styles,
Hmm.
asking questions about, what am I supposed to do if I sent you an email and I haven't heard back? How long do I wait before I send you another email?
Creating the norms.
Yeah, exactly. What's a reasonable amount of time that you should have a document that I've given you to look at? So think about what you need. And even in terms of the type of style, some people like an advisor who checks in with them frequently. Others are like, I'll
Leave me
come and
alone.
get you when
Yeah.
I need you. Other than that, I don't want to be bugged.
Yeah.
So talk about what you want. And there's also some challenges that you can face with your advisor. So one that Michael experienced,
Hmm.
his advisor left.
Yeah. Yeah. She's actually the same person that recruited me into the program, also. So she was my advisor for about a year and a half, and accepted a position at another university. So now I'm basically starting from the ground up with a new advisor. And with my past one, the one who recently left, we had various conversations of what type of studies I wanted to do, what type of methods I can use within those studies, what type of research I should do. So now I have to basically start from the ground up.
Yeah, that happens. And sometimes you have incompatible management styles. I mean, when you get assigned your advisor at first, they just kind of do it based on, some thought about your interests,
Mhm.
but your interests are going to change over time. Or you might find out that the person you thought you wanted to work with is not really the person you want to work with because maybe their research really isn't what you thought it was. Or sometimes advisors are absent. So don't rely only on an advisor. How did that pop up? Also, think about your program coordinator. For some of you, the program coordinator is the first advisor that you might have. So, if that's the case, then that's going to be your go to person. But the program coordinators also know a lot about the faculty. So, if you're trying to figure out what somebody's work style is or personality is based on yours, you can ask the program coordinator to give you a lot of information. They also know all the nuts and bolts of the program,
Yep.
filing timelines, what kind of paperwork you need,
Yep.
different opportunities, some of the different labs. And so, really working with your program coordinator is an important thing to do. And your peers, don't forget your peers. Not only the people that come in with you at the same time, but the people who are more advanced, who've been
Yep.
through it, who can tell you again, talking to different people about what their experience has been with their advisor, taking it all with a grain of salt, realizing that your experience could be completely different than theirs. Um, but again, think about that. Also, for those of you who are thinking of changing careers or you're kind of exploring your career, I don't know what your experience is. I know some of our students come in with, 5, 10, 15 years of experience.
Yeah.
Some come in with only a year or
Limited.
two. So when you're thinking of who you're talking to, you really never know that there could be somebody in your cohort, if you talk career things with them, that might know people in the career that you're heading to. So again, work with your peers to get to know, and not just in your program. I think it's really good. We're a small campus. Get to know people across the divide. Get involved in campus clubs and organizations to meet other people. So we did the peers and advanced students. Other faculty. One of the nice things about CGU is that you can work with faculty not just at CGU but at other campuses. So there are some faculty in the 7Cs who are open to working with CGU students. There are also faculty at other local universities who are willing to connect and work with our students as well. So you might be able to find connections with other people who would be really helpful. And these other offices around here, Center for Writing and Rhetoric, Preparing Future Faculty, Student Life Diversity and Leadership, Montessori Counseling. Again, if you need someone to talk to about mental health related issues, they're a great resource. And so look at all the different people and all the different buckets you can have of connections that you might want to make. And Michael and I were talking before this, and he was mentioning that he even has some of his mentoring network or people that aren't even on campus.
Yeah, and it's funny because most of my mentors are graduates of CGU, so they're either in the director level positions at the K-12 education spectrum, or in VP positions in the higher ed spectrum. So for someone like myself who's kind of wanting to be in the middle at the community college level, I really get to get the advice from both the K-12 and the higher ed. But what's also equally as important is to start building your strategic relationships for your personal life as well. Academics is extremely important, but keeping the well-being of who you are intact is extremely important as well. So sometimes the same individuals, your peers, your advisors, your program coordinators, or your mentors outside of the campus can serve that kind of dual role, if, of course, you feel comfortable and they feel comfortable doing that as well. So keep that in mind.
Well, and then even you brought up with other people too, having some people that are not involved in higher ed at all
Oh,
for
yeah.
your
Yeah.
for your mental health.
Yeah.
Because when
'Cause you're
you
gonna be
talk to
surrounded.
your peers and cohort, you're just going to talk school,
Yeah.
and that's all you're going to talk about. So sometimes you need some people you can talk to that have no idea
Just
what you're
normal
doing.
people.
Yeah, regular folks.
Yeah, regular
So-
folks.
So think about that, and and again, you, like Michael said, start early because it takes time to build relationships with people. And I know all of you have probably heard that most people get their jobs through direct networking, but you can't do that while you're on the job search. You have to have relationships with people prior to the
Beforehand.
time that
Yep.
you need them if you really want to use them as connections. And so that's important to think about, again, the timing on things. So also there's a bigger academic community for you to join. So there are different things, and sometimes you'll learn this through grad school, and sometimes it's just stuff that people expect you to know.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the reasons I wanted to do this is that I found in my experience there's a whole lot of stuff that people think you should know. I don't know
No,
where you're supposed to get this knowledge.
exactly.
So, but it's just assumed, well, of course you would know you need to do these things. So here's some of the things that faculty might not mention to you that you need to do. So, one is that you need to present your work and you need to find different venues where you can do that. You're trying to become an expert in something, and so you can develop your expertise by looking for opportunities to present. So, attend and present at conferences. And this is true both if you are going the faculty route, it's particularly true, but even if you're going to go into industry, going to conferences can still be a really great way to make connections and meet people. So, depending on what your field is,
Hmm.
there are often a lot of industry people. So, for example, in psychology, when you go to a psychology conference, there are people who work outside of a higher ed and faculty roles who attend those conferences. And so you could make connections with people who might be your colleagues in the future at some point. So definitely attend conferences. And so every time you write a paper for a class, you should always be thinking to yourself,
How are you gonna present?
yeah, how am I going to present this? What
Yep.
conference can I submit it to? Because conferences are the gateway to the next thing you need to do, which is publish. So a lot of people will go to a conference first, present, get feedback, refine, and then they'll send things out for publication. And I don't know if you've ever published anything before, but your faculty might talk about this as if it's an easy thing. In the very, very best case scenario, from the time you submit an article to a journal
Mm.
and the time it actually gets published, if everything goes swimmingly, that's a minimum of 2 years.
Oh,
But most people don't get that lucky because you send it out and 6 months later or 9 months later they say this is okay, and either we don't like it at all, or we like it but it needs work, so you get a revise and resubmit, which means you start the whole 6 month process over
all over
again.
again.
The what if you're really really lucky, you'll get accepted with these revisions, so you have to make changes to it and then send it back, but very few people ever will take it as it is. And so it's a lengthy process to get something published. It's not a quick thing. So do try to publish. Build your network. We've already talked about this. We're going to keep talking
Yep,
about this and
absolutely.
stress it. You really need to build strategic relationships with people. And this is regardless of the career that you want to go into. You'll find colleagues, you'll find collaborators. So when you think about presenting at conferences, I was just talking to Michael
Yep.
because I'm helping him prepare for a conference. And I said, you need to find some other people who might want to present at the same conference, because if you present a panel, like here's our moderator, here's the people that are going to present, you have a higher rate oftentimes of getting accepted than if you submit an individual paper. Because when you submit one paper, they have to figure out who you would fit with. So it just takes more work on their part. So make it easier, make friends, and apply for conferences as a group. But the networking helps for that, and building your relationships with people is really important. And then do learn to brag about yourself, learn to self promote, figure out how to share your successes with others. I think when you're in graduate school, it tends to make you sometimes a little bit too humble.
Yeah.
And that's not really a great thing when you're out trying to make connections with people, or when you're trying to job search. You need to have a little bit more ability. And this book is an excellent book to help you learn how to self promote in a positive, non egotistical way. So definitely look that up. Then you might be thinking, what am I going to do this summer as I prepare? So you're already listening to webinar. Good for you. Hopefully you'll
That's
listen
step
to the
one.
rest of the series. Definitely read your department's student handbook. If you haven't gotten a copy of it, or you don't know where it is, if you've been interacting with your student support specialist for your program, you can call that person or email them and say, hey, can you help me figure out
Yep.
where this is? You can call the program coordinator. Some of them are on the MyCGU portal page for the department. but some of them are hidden in Canvas and other places. So for some of you, you can just go to the portal, type in Student Handbook for Psychology. It'll pop right up. That is one of the programs that does pop up.
Yep.
But for math, that their handbook is hidden in Canvas. So you would have to reach out to Charlotte and say, hey, can I get access to the student handbook? So that's all the rules and regulations that you need to have. So you should print out a copy of it so that you have it for yourself. If you're in a master's program, you're only here 2 years, so it's not likely to change. But if you're in a PhD program, sometimes they make changes and revisions, but you are only responsible for what the rules were when you came in. That's why you want to make sure you print it out and you have, this is the 2019 student handbook. I need to go by this, and if anything changes, that doesn't affect me. But you don't want to have to be scrambling trying to search for the old handbook once they've posted the new one. So get your student handbook. Then a couple of years ago, we've also created the Ask Binder. Ask stands for Academic Success Kit. This is available in the MyCGU portal. So if you just type in Ask or Academic Success Kit, you'll be able to find it. There's also a link to it on the professional development academic professional development page that I showed you so that you can see that. So definitely take a look at that. It has a lot of different sections that are based on things that you need to know. Again, it's got some information on advising. It's got information on using and interacting with our offices, some of the other offices. So it's designed to help you be successful in grad school. So read your Ask Binder. I mentioned again the academic professional development site. This is brand new. We just created it last month. So everything's going to run on this, and you can see it's a collaborative effort with Career Development, Center for Writing and Rhetoric, Preparing Future Faculty, and Transdisciplinary Studies, which we are vital to the academic identity that you are trying to build in your professionalism. So definitely look at that. And then if you have an opportunity to get a little jump start on the reading, when you come to grad school, and Michael probably experienced this, you'll get a reading list and you'll think, are you kidding me? How in the world am I going to read all of that? So you need to learn how to read really fast and efficiently. You'll learn that in graduate school. If you learn nothing else, you're going to learn how to take in a large amount of information and synthesize it very quickly because you have to. So yes, they don't expect you to read every word of it, but you're responsible for that. So if you can get a reading list and start reading sooner, that's great. If not, just do a little light reading over the summer and get prepared for the onslaught when the semester begins. It'll be a lot of work. So get your jump start. And then the career planning. So this is the piece that we're most passionate about, obviously. And getting your degree is really not enough. Employers don't hire people because they have a particular degree. They hire them because they have a particular set of skills. And so that's part of what you need to think about. So as you go through your time at CGU, get experience and exposure. So in some cases, you'll have class projects that will require you to work with employers, so you'll get some connections. But you also want to look for internships during your time here. You want to do informational interviews with people. The best way to find out what you need to do to get prepared for your intended career is to talk to people who are doing that career now. And they can tell you what you need to know. But you need to kind of think about all these different things. So what do you want to do? What job titles are interesting? Where do you want it to be? I've found in working with some people that sometimes the what you want to do and the where you want to live don't coincide. So thinking about those things, what organization or industry, what salary, what are your values and how does a career connect to your values? And then even looking at all of these other things, being proactive, being self-aware, adaptable, and being self-efficacious are all keys to being really prepared and active in your job search. And so that's something to think about. Your career won't drop down and come
from the
to you
sky the day you graduate.
It takes work. And so we're here to help guide you through that process and help you figure out what you need to do to be really connected. And what you need to think about as an advanced degree holder is it's a blessing and a curse sometimes when you're out looking for careers, because sometimes employers might tell you, hey, you're overqualified for the position. And sometimes, depending on your background experience, that might mean you have too many degrees and not enough direct experience. And sometimes for PhDs, we're considered odd outside of academia. And so sometimes there's a little more work that you have to do to convince someone that, yes, just because I have a PhD. Like I had someone tell me one time when I was talking to that, it sounded like a normal person.
Yeah.
And I'm
They
like,
say
what
you
does
sound like a
that
normal
mean?
person.
So, but this person was expecting people with PhDs to be all, use really large
Extracurricular.
words and correct everybody's grammar and
Yeah.
basically be snobby as opposed to a regular
And
person.
that's the norm.
That's their
Yeah,
baggage,
that's
but
the
that
normal.
happens,
Yep.
and you end up
Perspective.
paying for other people's baggage oftentimes. And so, think about that. And then also, if you have a limited experience and advanced degree, sometimes that's a bit of a challenge also to convince a person that, yeah, I know I have these really valuable skills that you want and ability to do these types of things. And if you're in a PhD program and you worked before you came and you're going to take time off from work, you'll have a couple of years outside of the workforce, which again could have an impact. So, the first thing you really want to do when you get here, if you haven't done this already, is do a gap analysis. So look at some job descriptions, talk to some people who do what you want to do, and figure out where your gaps are so that you can use your time here really effectively and fill in those gaps where you need to. I think we're all prone to the things we're really good at, we're drawn to, and we'll keep doing them. And the things that are we're not good at, we tend to
We try
avoid.
to avoid them, yeah, as much as possible.
Right. But if the things you tend not to be good at are the things you need to learn how to do for a job, you need to spend your time here figuring out how to do those things. There's a lot of support for that. So definitely check out what you could do. We've created two roadmaps also to help in the process. One's called the career roadmap and the other's called the faculty career roadmap. And those are both on the CDO portal page under the Explored tab. So you can check those out as well. So other things that we would do for you at the CDO, we're here to help you as best we can. So with career exploration and planning, so we'll help you figure out how to make a map of where you want to go, how to build your strategic relationships, job and internship search, interview preparation and practice. People do not make enough use of this as they should. You should always practice interviewing before you go and do it for real, because you don't want to bomb when it's for a job that you really want. And even if you go and say, I'm just going to practice on this job, they're not going to give you feedback that's going to be meaningful and helpful. So come here, we'll practice with you. We also have a big interview that's a practice platform that you can use. That's free for you to use while you're here. We help with negotiation strategy and with document review. So all of these services are available to you now and also when you're an alum, but you just want to start using them now.
Please do.
So again, our other online resources, Handshake, which all of you are in Handshake, Big Interview. We have a YouTube channel. We have a blog. And then we have a professional development Facebook/Instagram. And so you can look, that's again, the link for that is on the academic professional development site. We do workshops, webinars, and events. So keep track of the calendar to see what we do. And here's just a brief intro to the other program areas that are going to be running webinars this summer. So the next one is going to be with the Center for Writing and Rhetoric, doing graduate writing assignments. I'm not going to read all this to you. And if you don't catch it all now, that's great. You can rewatch it and read the slides later. Transdisciplinary studies program. And so again, that's something CGU prides itself on, is our push towards looking at the world needs lots of different voices to look at the complex problems that we have. And the Transdisciplinary Studies program works to help you figure out how to cross those divides and talk to folks in other areas. And preparing future faculty, even if you do not want to be a faculty person ever in your life, there still might be things in this program that might be beneficial to you. So Shamini, who's a director, sees this as developing future leaders.
Yep.
And so there could be, you might not take the whole thing and get the certificate, but there might be different workshops that you'd want to be participating in. And she's going to do a webinar on preparing to teach and lead, so you can look out for that. Again, you can come see us at the CDO. You can make appointments with us through Handshake. If you're looking on Handshake and you don't see a time for that fits your schedule, or you want to meet with a particular person and you're not seeing a time, please email us directly and ask for an appointment. You can, if you provide us with 3 days and times that work for you, that helps us with scheduling. But if there's not something open in Handshake, that doesn't mean that we can't see you. So
Exactly.
definitely reach out to us if you need different accommodations of what we currently have listed. These are the other webinars in the series in the order that they're going to appear. So writing assignments in graduate school, kickstarting your career, preparing to teach and lead, Handshake and LinkedIn, public professional identity, how to collaborate, and building strategic relationships. And so, for more information, you can visit the Academic Professional Development page, and that should have the links to all of these webinars so that you can watch them throughout the summer. So, I want to thank you for your time. It was
Thank you.
great to talk to you.
And we definitely look forward to seeing you all in our office. If not in September, then for sure in October. We would definitely like to start our career development or career plan for you as well. So the earlier, the better.